How you guys all doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, here on a Thursday, February 6th. About 3 days left to go until the Super Bowl is here and underway. On today's show, we got a great show lined up for you guys. We got a couple things to talk about on the Super Bowl, talking about a couple keys to the game that we have for the Eagles as well as the Kansas City Chiefs, and getting into a very intriguing story that was posted by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about Russell Wilson clashing with offensive coordinator Arthur Smith and where that can lead us heading into this offseason. So that and more coming up on today's show. Make sure to stick around and stay for the entire show, as well as me reminding you guys, if you want to get involved with the show at any point, with any questions, comments, or opinions you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to do so. Your input is always a big part of what makes this show great, and we always appreciate whenever you guys give any insight or just your perspective on anything that we're talking about during these live shows. And with that, you guys have the opportunity to join in on the conversations by getting your message to stand out and getting featured on the show by using the new Super Chat feature. The new Super Chat feature allows you to get involved, with the show, let us know what's on your mind. All you have to do is just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that I can see it, I'll read it out loud, and just get another feel for whatever we're talking about on today's show. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. Again, if you want to be part of the show, hit the Super Chat button and hit the $ and just let us know what's on your mind. Any questions, comments, or anything, we're always taking them during these live shows. So with that out of the way now, we could start with the first topic on today's show, talking about the keys to the game for each team in the Super Bowl. And we're going to kick things off with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are they're at the doorstep of doing something that many probably thought was impossible, right? If the Patriots weren't going to do it, there was no way there was ever going to be another franchise as dominant as them that could get it done. But, we're here. We're a few days away from the Chiefs potentially being three consecutive Super Bowl champions. They would just have to do what they actually did last year in defeating a familiar opponent like they did last year against the 49ers. And also, this is definitely going to be their toughest test of any Super Bowl win, I would say, right? Because the loss, obviously, to the Buccaneers was their toughest test, obviously, because they lost. But in any of the victories and, going into this game, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, it definitely will be their toughest hurdle to get over if they do end up getting the victory, because of how the Eagles are built, right? They're an all-star team, it seems like, and they've made it up until this point, running through everybody, but the Chiefs now stand in their way, trying to achieve something that nobody else has done before in NFL history. And for the Chiefs to do that, I got three things that I want to see them do that I think are going to be critical for them to get a victory on Sunday. And the first one, I think it would be simple to say just to contain Saquon, right? That's the obvious one. That's the easy answer, right? Everybody says that. But while I was watching some television today, listening to some of the coverage around the Super Bowl, obviously, I saw something on Saquon that made a lot of sense to me in regards to this topic, right? Like stopping Saquon, how do you contain Saquon? And I heard that, a lot of times, when you're trying to stop a run or you're trying to keep quarterbacks contained, right? You always want to set the edge and things like that. But I thought it was brilliant when I heard how when you're trying to approach this task of trying to stop Saquon Barkley, or at least have him impact the game as least as possible, you ideally in this scenario would want to push him to the outsides, right? Because when you're getting Saquon in like a one-on-one situation vertically, he's got the 4.3 speed, he's got the strength, the low center of gravity and everything like that, and he's got guys to run behind in the middle of that offensive line. If he gets going north and south, it's going to be very tough to, one, get around those guys, and then try and tackle Saquon, right? That's a very tough thing to do. So this strategy is to just kind of make him go the long way. Make him go the long way around, right? If he's going to break, the typical 30-yard, 40-yard run, it becomes a lot more difficult to run around the entire offensive line and try and turn the corner around the left outside or the right outside of any run, right? So I think rather than trying to set the edge and trying to contain Saquon like in like the middle or anything like that, I would say try to push him towards the outsides, because that way you're going to have to make the offensive line move. You're going to try and get them to not only block, right, which is hard enough, but block while they're moving, while they're on the run becomes extremely difficult. I would say that favors the more agile defenders. And again, Saquon trying to turn the corner each and every time consistently starts to become more of an egregious task to do. So just finding ways to make Saquon, stop his feet, trying to turn the corner, right? It's a lot more difficult to change the direction when you're running full speed outside and then trying to turn that corner becomes very difficult, right? And then at that point, if you're able to do that, you're able to rally more people to the ball on the outsides, and you just need a lot of discipline, obviously, from your defensive line and your linebackers and defensive backs and stuff like that, right, to rally to the ball, and for your defensive linemen, right, stay gap oriented. Don't go trying to make a play and you're out of your gap now, and then Saquon breaks like a 20-yard run just instantly, right? You can't do that. Try to push him to the outsides, because it'll be a lot more difficult for him, to obviously hurt you, right? Because the football field's vertically, right? You're not gaining that many yards as it may look when you're running horizontally and then trying to turn upfield. So little things like that, I think, just trying to make it harder for Saquon to not hurt you as much in the run game. So that's one thing that I think the Chiefs should want to do. Then the second thing, I have to go back to the idea of disguising coverages and Steve Spagnuolo and just trying to be as manipulative as possible when you're facing Jalen Hurts on the opposite side, right? Because I do believe Jalen Hurts is very accurate. I think he can make all the throws. They just don't need him to, right, in this offense, unlike before, right? But it gets tough for him, it looks like, when he starts holding on to the ball too long, or he gets through one read, it's not there, through a second read, it's not there, and then, the picture seems to get a little bit cloudy for him from that point on, right? It feels like he might panic a little bit, dare I say, so, there's that aspect of it, right? And according to Next Gen Stats, Jalen Hurts has taken 39 sacks that have happened after 4 seconds after the snap of the ball, which is the third most in the NFL. And in the NFC Championship game, he was actually 0 for 5 on extended dropbacks as well. So whenever he holds on to the ball too long, of course you're able to get pressure on him. You're more likely to, at least, and you're able to just make it a little bit more difficult. Guys are, I lost the word. They're improvising. Guys start to improvise. The routes, just start to become a little bit more free-flowing. And, Jalen's sitting there, right? He can make a throw, but it becomes a bit more difficult when you don't really know sort of where everyone's going to be. And then you got to worry about the pass rush and things like that. So that sort of thing, right? Making Jalen uncomfortable, disguising the coverages, make him think it's one coverage at the start of the play and then quickly shift to something else. And on that point, Kansas City actually rotated their safeties a season high 55% of the time in the conference championship against the Bills, right? And I think that's something that they should do maybe even more this time around in the Super Bowl, right? Just to show something to Jalen, have Justin Reed down near the box, and then instantly when the ball snapped, make him run to the middle of the field or make him run somewhere else where Jalen, doesn't see that, or he loses sight of that and something like that, right? I always go back to that example that I gave a few weeks ago in the lead up to the Commanders game where, like, if you're sending a clear blitz, right, for a lot of quarterbacks that might fluster them or they might be affected by that, right? But I think for Jalen, because they have such great receivers, right, when he sees a blitz coming and it's not disguised or anything like that, right, he could just throw it that way because he knows that the pressure's coming from that way. It's probably one-on-one over there. My guy's going to win 8 out of the 10 times at least. So I always use that example in the Commanders game where they played in Washington and Frankie Louvu, right, started like he was going to blitz, and he kind of quickly ran out to the flat. Jalen saw that, but then as soon as Frankie kind of like feinted to go that way, he jumped right back into the middle, knowing that Jalen was going to throw it exactly where he ran out of, and he intercepted the ball, and it looked like a pretty bad throw, right? You're thinking, why did he throw it right to him? It's because he showed him something, he ran out to the flat, and then quickly backpedaled and got in the way, knowing that Jalen was going to throw it right then and there. So things like that, right? Kind of showing something, a little cat and mouse game like that, I think is going to be huge for this Chiefs defense to try and confuse Jalen as much as possible. And then the last key to the game, I think, is going to be the red zone battle for the Chiefs defense going up against this Philly offense who ran in 7 touchdowns against the Commanders, which is absurd. And, that's their bread and butter, right? From the 5-yard line in towards the goal line, it's going to be very hard to stop Jalen and then Saquon running the ball with that offensive line. You're probably going to lose most of those battles. But as soon as you get into the red zone, as soon as you get to the 20-25-yard line, I think that's where this Chiefs defense has to really try and win that battle, right? Field goals over touchdowns given up. And actually, during the regular season, the Eagles' red zone touchdown conversion rate was only 12th in the NFL, while the Chiefs' defense in the red zone from inside the 20-yard line was 8th best in the NFL. So it seems like they do a pretty good job of defending the red zone, and you can only do so much to stop an offense from getting to the red zone, especially as talented as the Eagles. So you might give up field position like that, but as soon as you get into the red zone, tighten everything up. I actually think it allows you to disguise coverages even more, because you're forcing Jalen, if he is going to throw, which you want him to in the red zone, to be a pinpoint accurate in those throws, because everything's more condensed. There's a lot more bodies everywhere. You can't make a mistake and get a turnover or something like that, right? So I think winning that battle, trying to avoid them running one in as much as possible is going to be huge for them, because as soon as they get to the goal line, right, that's going to be a touchdown more often than not. So making sure that you win that red zone battle and get them to throw as much as possible, right? And trying to take away that running aspect as much as you can, because the Eagles are going to run it, and they're going to run it a bunch of times with Jalen and Saquon. So if you can try and stop that, not only do you stop them, but you allow 4 less points rather than a full touchdown. So those are my 3 keys for the Kansas City Chiefs, things that I need to see them do in order for them to get a victory on Sunday. 3 of the most important ones, I think I would say, in ranking them. So with that being said, we got to one side of the ball, we got to one team on Sunday, now we got to get to the other side, right? What is it going to take for the Eagles to get a victory on Sunday over the Kansas City Chiefs? 3 more keys, this time for the Philadelphia Eagles, when we return after our first break.